afternoon. How's everyone? Good. It's like post-lunch sort of lull. Let's see if we can get you guys a little more animated. We're going to talk about failure today. And first of all, I just want to say it's really an honor for me to be here. I'm thrilled to have been asked, so thank you to the organizers. And what a great 2 speeches I just heard. I learned a ton. I'd actually never seen the video of an astronaut trying to get up on the moon, so thank you for sharing that with us. That was fascinating. And I think one of the themes that we all often see when we come to events like this is people talking about success, right? And I think we wouldn't be here if we didn't all focus on success. And we've all done a very good job at being successful in our lives. But what I wanted to talk about today is failure. And we have a nice picture of Thomas Edison. I wonder if anyone knew that that's who it was. Maybe someone? Okay, so why are we going to talk about failure today? Well, I think first and foremost, it's how we learn. Can I just ask in the room, has anyone ever, are you guys going to be willing to admit if you'd experienced a failure in your life? Show of hands. Awesome. I should put 2 hands up because I have failed many times. And I think Thomas Edison gives us permission when he has his quote that, I haven't failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that haven't worked. And I think all of us know that, particularly in the space industry, failure is something that we're going to have to live with. It's something we try to avoid, but it has happened in the past. And one of the unique things about the space industry is that we embrace it as a way of learning. So immediately after there are accidents, NASA, what do? They go and they investigate. They figure out what happened and why, and to make sure it never happens again. The military does the same thing, and most nimble organizations are very good at doing after-action reports to figure out what went wrong. And so what does that mean for us as professionals? Well, there's a lot of ways that we can practice this in our own lives. And I was thinking at home this weekend about what examples of failures I could give you. Unfortunately, there were a lot of them. I had to just pick a couple. And one that struck me immediately was when I learned to drive. I'm assuming there's most of you at some point in your life learned to drive. And I had a failure in the beginning. I had borrowed my mom's car to go to the post office. It seemed like an innocuous enough activity. Pulled into a parking spot. Everything was fine. Got out, went and did what I needed to do in the post office, and as I got back in the car to reverse, I remember distinctly my driver ed teacher saying, when you're in reverse, you have to look behind you. So I did that, and I backed up and I turned, and immediately hit the car next to me. So that was a really good example of learning from failure. I damaged my mom's car. I had to go home and tell her that. But the fact of the matter is now, every time I go in reverse, I constantly think, well, where is the front of my car, and what am I doing with it? And to this day, I don't have any wood here, so I'll just knock on my head. I have not gotten into another similar accident, so I feel like that was a good, successful learning opportunity for me. I also was thinking of another example this weekend, and I have a dog. I like to talk about my dog a lot. His name is Brody. He is white, so he may be here on my black outfit. And last summer, I have a wonderful, I think it's wonderful, roof deck that he and I like to go onto right before bed, and we like to look at the stars. And we got into a routine. Normally, he's very obedient. I'm known in my family as the enforcer, and there's good reason for that when it comes to dogs, and he knows what his rules are. But he started to look even more cute than normal, and so I'd tell him it's time to come in off the roof deck, and he would just look at me, and I'd walk back over to him and start to snuggle him, and we got into this routine so that after a few nights, by the time I was calling him in, he would just never come in anymore. And I was getting really frustrated, and I thought, oh my gosh, what's wrong with Brody? He's a bad dog now. And then I had to realize, actually, no, I'm a bad enforcer, because I started changing the rules. And so I had to take a step back and look at, well, what can I be doing differently in order to enable him to be a successful dog? And I had to get very strict about when I said come in, I would not go back and snuggle him no matter how adorable he looked. And after about 2 nights, we were back on track, and everything was great. So that was another personal place where I had to learn from some failures. All right. Let's think about another way that failure helps us in our professional careers. And to me, it means that we're trying. And I love this quote, too. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. I have a question for you. How many of you in here play golf? Okay, some of you. All right. I do not play golf, but I have taken golf lessons. I'm much better at golf caddy or golf cart driver than actual golfer. And when I took golf lessons, the thing that struck me the most was when my instructor told me, well, if you're going to putt, you have to make sure it gets to the hole or beyond the hole. And that didn't make sense to me, because why would you want it to go beyond the hole? You should try to get it as close as possible. And he said, no, because if you don't even make it to the hole, it's never going to go in. And that, to me, is a good example of, in my professional life, I have to strive to get to my goal or beyond, not just close enough, but continue to go. And an example of that, as an entrepreneur, starting organizations, both for-profit and not-for-profits, no matter what it is, you still have to raise money to do it. And it's not an easy task. I have raised enough money for organizations to know that you have to continue to try and to try. So I was running an organization that had never, a type of organization that had never been created before. And everyone told me, well, it would be great to have, but no one's going to fund it. So I went and I looked for a source of funding, and it turned out it was an overseas organization. So I went to them and explained to them what I wanted to do, and of course, as potential funders often do, they said, that's great, give us more information. So I had to fly back overseas and give them more information. And every time I thought, this will be the time they're going to sign and I'm going to get a check. And every time it was, well, just a little bit more. And as you can imagine, flying overseas was not inexpensive, and it was on my dime. And I had a lot of people in my life start to tell me, Carie, maybe you need to just pull it back a little. Maybe you need to look for something less, or maybe this isn't the right place to go. And I thought, but I kept getting a little further, and I'm going to keep shooting for even more. And ultimately, I wouldn't be telling you this story if it didn't work. And I did get funding and was able to create this organization. But not only that, my funders gained a lot of respect for me because I kept going and kept showing up. And they ended up funding the organization for a number of years. So it was a really good lesson to me to not always listen to the critics. And even if it looks like failure every time I'd fly back home without a check, it was just another step getting along the way to what success was going to be. And I've already apparently hit the button. So my third point, because as anyone's worked with consultants, you have to have 3 points. My third point about failure is failure reveals unseen pathways. I wasn't really sure how to express this one, but I thought this quote was kind of awesome too from Thomas Edison. When you've exhausted all possibilities, remember this, you haven't. And I think that there are a lot of places in life where we just get tired, or we just feel like we're not quite able to get where we need to go. And I have found that often that's exactly when I need to step back and say, well, what's going on here? And so because they asked me to give a talk where we talk about what things have gone on in our career, I want to talk about a failure in my career, and that is when a project I was working on ended and I basically lost my job, which even saying that, it sounds so shameful to say, but I will guarantee that most of you in this room will either already have or will experience at some point when you no longer are employed. And it's a pretty scary feeling. And one, I wanted to immediately just go get a job, any job out there. But then I realized that's not actually what I want. And if I have the fortitude to take a step back and see what is it that I really want to do, I have a chance to make a huge change in my life. And so I started to think about, well, what do I really want to do? And it dawned on me, I was working in an industry that I didn't really choose to go into. Life just sort of happened, and there I was. And now I got to think about, what do I love? And I love space. I went to space camp 4 times. I was a space camp counselor, and yet I had no professional background whatsoever in space. But I knew that this was an unforeseen opportunity, an unseen pathway that I didn't know how I could do it, but I knew that somehow I could find a career in the space industry. So I just started talking to everybody I know, and then everyone they knew, and just asked a lot of questions. And many of the people in this room I got a chance to talk to. And of course, I would not be telling you the story if it didn't work out. I got to co-found and be the CEO of an organization that I absolutely love. I get to help students launch research into space. How cool is that? Every day we're helping the next generation of explorers. I love it. And if I had not lost my job way back when, I would never have been able to do this. So for me, it felt like a failure, but it led to success for me. And I know that I'm going to probably have that happen again at some point in my career, and it's a good lesson for me to keep learning. And on that note about shame, I will tell you that there are times in my career where I felt ashamed. One in particular, I remember I was doing a report, and my funder, I had forgotten to put the funder's logo on the cover of the report, like a big no-no. And as it was going to print, I sent a copy of it to the funder, and they pointed out my mistake to me. And there was this moment when I thought, I could get defensive, I could try to say, well, the language in the contract doesn't exactly say that. There were lots of ways I could have tried to cover up my mistake, because I was ashamed of it. But instead, I decided to embrace it and said, you are absolutely right. Let me see what I can do. I called the printer. Literally, if I had called 10 minutes later, it would have already gone to print. They were able to stop it. We were able to get a designer to redesign the cover. It cost a little more money, but we fixed the problem. And I had to go tell my boss what had happened, which was really hard. But I knew that I felt like proud of myself for having done what I could to fix the problem, own up to it. I mean, what was she going to do then? You can't yell at somebody who already owns up to that they did it wrong. Well, I guess you can, but I don't think it's useful. So I just wanted to impart that because I was told to tell career advice, and I think being able to admit when you've made a mistake, for me, has been such a godsend and not something that anyone ever told me in my graduate studies or anywhere else. So with that, I would like to say I wish you many failures in your career, because I think that all of the learning and the unforeseen pathways and the fact that failure is an essential part of success will lead you to wherever it is that you're going to go. So thank you so much.